Welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name's Patrick, and I'll be your host. This is build video 14 for Trumpeter's 1/200 scale USS Fletcher DD-445. And before we get into anything, I will first show you a guest appearance by USS Stevens. So I approached this one a little bit differently than I did with Fletcher, in that I got all these fair leads installed right now so I could paint them the same color as the hull. I also got the prop guards right there installed, so again I can get them painted the same color as the hull. So just got to mask off the waterline, put on the boot strap, and then the hull color and the deck color and decals, and we'll get her up to speed here hopefully pretty quickly with Fletcher. At any rate, let's go ahead and concentrate on what we're going to do here in build video 14. So as we can see here, we've got page 18 of our instructions. Previously, we've gotten everything done all the way up through to this point. And this mainly is not going to focus so much on this side as much as this side right here, this portion. It doesn't look like a lot, but there is actually quite a bit of work involved in this, in that there's going to be some parts cleanup. There's going to be drilling out of these windows right here. And then there's going to be a lot of painting and masking and unmasking and more painting, just to, continue on with that measure 12 camouflage scheme that goes all the way up across the bridge and everything like that. So a couple things to point out here real quick though is, one, we're not going to be installing these two fire directors right here. Fletcher at the time did not have fire directors up here. He only has the one that sat immediately in front of the twin 40mm Bofors. Another thing here we're going to eliminate is this photo etch piece right here. And I've figured out how to do that by robbing Peter to pay Paul. In this case, actually, we're going to be borrowing some of the stock kit photo etch from USS Yorktown, which will not be needed for that build, as I've got the Ponto set to replace all the railings and everything like that. But there is a piece of photo etch that can replace just this front part right there, where it steps up onto the forward part of the bridge right here. And so I should be able to eliminate that piece of photo etch right there. And it makes absolutely no sense why Trumpeter decided to include that in this kit right here, along with the dedicated piece of photo etch railing for it, just for the simple fact that that was there maybe for like 2 months, and that was taken down shortly around commissioning or something like that. And because we've got a little bit of wear and tear already and weathering on the Fletcher, it wouldn't make any sense to have that there. So let me go ahead and get the parts all up here, and we'll have a look at what we need to do. Okay, so most of all of the parts here are going to be on the C and A sprues, and then these two right here didn't really come on sprues so much. They just kind of came in a bag, but apparently they used to be on a J sprue. So the very first part of this is dealing with C2 right here. And if we look at the bottom of C2 there, we can see some ejector pin marks. Some of them, I think they're sunken in here. I'm not too worried about these because these will be covered up by this part right here. But these ones right here, they took the time to put some indications of support here for this decking. And so, I mean, you can look under there, presumably, and see that. So I like to eliminate these ejector pin marks right there. So we'll do so here with a little bit of CA glue, and then sand them flat. Another part of the parts preparation is, and again, we're not drilling the holes for these fire directors here, but I am going to be drilling out the windows right up here. And I'm doing so by hand, usually with an electric drill. I don't get the same careful results. It might wander off, or it's just too easy to kind of mess things up. So by hand, I'll be drilling out each of these, and when everything's said and done, we will back this with a little bit of clear plastic, and then tint it with a little bit of the Tamiya smoke right there. So one, it'll offer the impression of glass, but it won't allow a viewer to really look in there and see that there's absolutely nothing inside of that. So we'll go ahead and get started with getting all this punched out and put together here. Alrighty, so We'll just get this part right here, C2, freed up from its sprue. And then we can take some sanding sticks, sometimes just a good old 400 grit sanding stick. This is all that's really needed to get rid of some of these teeny tiny little sprue nibs. As we can see, this one's largely gone on the face. Still one there to go. So I'm not going to show all of the cleanup on this, but just kind of a demonstration on each little point here, and we'll touch base with what it looks like when everything's said and done here. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of these cleaned up, and then we'll move on to getting these ejector pin marks filled up. Taking care of these ejector pin marks. So we've got a little bit of this black rubberized CA glue, so we're going to just take a toothpick, and we don't want to put too much in there. I'll start with this one right here. So just enough to barely cover that mark right there. And we can do this for all of them. And what I want to avoid is getting this up against any other wall or bracket or anything like that on this part. In some of these areas it might be a little difficult to avoid those. Still just doing the best that we can though. Yeah, see right on this one right here, we got it a little bit on this support right there, but it should be able to, we should be able to get that taken care of and cleaned up. But at any rate, so once I've got all of those filled up and they've all dried up, I took a 400 grit sanding stick and I kind of custom cut this right here so it's thin enough to fit inside of these little areas in between those brackets, and this should help us sand out any of those little areas. So go ahead and get all these filled in, let it dry up, start sanding them smooth, come back when that's all done. Okay, so I've gone ahead and gotten the ejection pin marks filled with the black Flexi 5K CA, and then took me about an hour to sit here and carefully sand those all down. So there's what we've got now. Before I've actually put down any paint or anything like that, of course I'm going to follow up with a little bit of Mr. Surfacer, probably the 1000, just to kind of hit any teeny tiny little pinholes or anything like that. But other than that, I'm not too overly worried about these anymore, and I'm definitely unable to get to those ones way down in there, so I'm not even concerned about those. But those will be almost impossible to see. These, after a little bit of the Mr. Surfacer and then some of that XF24 dark gray, they'll just be almost invisible. So I'm happy with this, and on to the next part that we're doing cleanup on, which is the actual bridge structure here. I definitely want to show these as windows versus just dropping like a black wash into those areas. I definitely want them drilled out with again the clear plastic behind, and just mixed it with a little bit of the smoke to kind of tint them down. So with anything like this, I've always found it best to start off with a smaller drill bit and slowly work your way up to the larger diameter right there. That way you risk tearing out the plastic a lot less. And one thing I did notice on these is this plastic is definitely a bit thinner than the walls of this bridge piece. So I tend to usually do this with my fingers versus anything electric, just so I can kind of make sure that I'm not losing control. I have a lot better control using my fingers like this. So as we go, we just gradually step up. You can see I kind of started off that one a little bit off center, and still a bit off center, but as I move up in drill bit size, I can start kind of reaming it out toward the center of that. And we'll just progressively move up. Another thing that helps out with that is also starting out at a bit of an angle. So as you can see, that hole out in the window is a bit more centered. And the last size I've got in this set is this one right here. I can use this to further refine that or ream it out. But I've got one other tool here. When it's all said and done, I've got a circular file that I'll just kind of go in and smooth everything out. But for the most part, that right now is opened up enough to be convincing. So I just have to go around and do the rest of those. We're all said and done. I'll bring it back and show you, and you can have a look. Alright, well, with the platform done, I drilled out the windows here to our bridge part. Just waiting for everything to focus. There we go. So this part has been prepped, ready to go. Everything's even, all the little burrs from the inside are all cleared out as well. So the clear plastic should just be able to glue down nice and easily without any kind of warping or trouble or anything like that. A little bit other prep that I took care of in the meantime also here is this part right here, A16. These are flag bags, and there's two of them, and there's supposed to be lines for attaching flags that go from these to part of the mast. And there is no attachment points there. So while this might not be 100% realistic, it is the best compromise I could come up with right there. So I just bent in a little bit of brass wire, drilled it through, and super glued it in, and then cleared out all of the excess super glue. And we can see I did that to both of them. They look pretty good. Other little bit of prep here I did was these lights. I believe these are... Just waiting for everything to focus there. I believe these are signal lights. So it's trumpeter molds them with, you know, completely solid. I ended up drilling them out, and I'm going to put in some chrome paint and then fill that in with some clear UV resin, just to give the indication of some lenses. There is, I don't have any solution for the flaps that would go over top of them to, you know, block out the light and open it back up for when they're signaling to other ships. But, you know, again, compromise here with what's been provided in the ship. One of the other preps I made here was I went ahead and cut apart that dedicated railing. You can see right there, it was there's a middle piece right here that we got cut out, and so we've got that, and then this is the piece that will go around the bridge, so we won't have to worry about that tiny little photo etch ledge right there. So, so far things are working out pretty well. My next step is going to be to prime things and get things ready to go. Parts are now painted and prepped and ready to go. These right here, besides being searchlights, I think they're also signal lights. I might have mentioned that previously. And there's just no accommodation in the parts here for the little flappers right there that the sailors would have used to signal other ships or anything like that in Morse code. However, I am going to go ahead and, again, paint the insides of these with chrome silver and then drop a little bit of UV curing resin inside to simulate a glass lens and give those a little bit more depth and detail than what they currently have. I'm not 100% sure what part or what this is, but the little 3D printed resin parts there have got quite a bit more detail than what the trumpeter kit provides. And again, this is from the Midwest Model Shop, and these are kind of prototypical or prototype examples here. These and these have been painted and clear coated, so I'm going to be able to add a little bit of a wash, oil wash, in order to kind of help make some of those details pop. And then additionally, I went ahead and got the main bridge pieces here painted and clear coated. You can see all the circular windows there are drilled out. Hopefully I can get this to focus for you. There we go. And yeah, you can see quite a bit of shine on there, and that is the gloss clear coat that'll allow the oil wash to flow, perform its capillary actions here in. And that right there is that platform there that is kind of sandwiched between these two. So I'll show you how these go together. And I'm not going to cement them together just yet because, again, I still want to put some windows, some clear plastic in there from the back side. Yeah, if I glued it in place, I wouldn't be able to get to it to do it. But when you sandwich these all together, that is what it appears to be like. And so then once we get this outfitted with these tiny little parts here and some of the railings and whatnot, this will be ready to go down on the ship. So, and according to the instructions, we're going to put it aside and wait to put it all on the ship after we get some other assemblies done. So I'm going to go ahead and get these parts separated here, and then I'll show you a quick bit of how I do the oil wash. Get the instructions out of the way. Don't make a mess with those. I've got some Abteilung oil right here. This is smoke. And really all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a big glob of this. I'm going to add it into this right here. And then a little bit of mineral spirits. And he uses odorless mineral spirits, but I'm going to say it still has an odor. And it's not great for you to breathe, so I would still recommend having plenty of ventilation, fan or something going, window open, just making sure you're not breathing those fumes. Also, it's not good for your pets as well, so normally when I'm doing anything with oils and mineral spirits, I tend to close the door to my workshop just to make sure that I don't have any curious visitors here, so they're not breathing those fumes. Alright, and it's important to mix this thoroughly. You can always add more paint. What we're looking for is very thin wash. And a lot of modelers will use the Tamiya panel line, which is a enamel. And it's still oil based, but I find that the tube oils tend to behave better for me. I'm able to manipulate the color and take off the excess. A little bit more forgiving for me than the enamels. So let's see where we're at there. Alright, so we got a pretty thin little oil wash right there. Alright, and I'll start with this base here because it's got some interesting doors and what have you. Make sure we're in focus. So just kind of load up the brush, and for the most part it should just be kind of touching this here in a couple spots. Anywhere where you see detail that you would want to have stand out a little bit, or have kind of like a artificial shadow. And yeah, it looks like I'm making a mess, but most of this, while it's still wet, can be manipulated, or after it's dry, you just come back with a little bit of mineral spirits on your brush and start to draw it back. A lot of times you can just kind of push it back into the corners. And one thing I will note about these Abteilung colors is a lot of times the color will start separating on you or settling. So it's also a good idea while you're working with it to give it a little mix here and there after a couple of dips. And it's okay to go over this stuff a second or a third time even, just to add more color. I'm applying this with the part so far away from me, so it's difficult for me to see exactly what's going on, but I just kind of wanted to provide a basic demonstration of what it is I'm using when I apply these washes and how I do it. And again, the gloss clear coat on this really helps this stuff flow. If you had a like a flat, then it would settle and kind of sink in there. And boy, look at that, I went out of focus again. So. And that's really all there is to it. And then after that, we're just going to take this, set it aside, and let it dry for a little bit. When I put a little bit more on here while we've got it up here. When I'm getting ready to work with these tube oil paints, I usually put them out on the cardboard. You can see right down here, and let a lot of the it's linseed oil leach out of it into the cardboard. And what it does is it really helps the drying time of these. Alright, let me put this aside here, hopefully. Yeah, looks like we're getting it enough of a focus. And it looks like a mess right now. It absolutely looks like a mess right now. After this dries though, we'll come back here and show you how I kind of draw that back with some of the mineral spirits. But I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these parts here all washed up and ready to go. And we'll come back here and show you how I clean them off. Alright, so the oil paints, sorry about the shakiness here. The oil paints are all, for the most part, all dried up. And we've got this really dull, sludgy mess kind of around all these little details. What we're going to do is wet our brush with a little bit of the mineral spirits. I've got most of that off of there, but then we're just going to kind of take this and just kind of re-wet some of this area here. In this case here, I'm going to go underneath this little railing. You can see we got some excess here, just drying our brush a little bit. Running it along there is removing some of that excess. And then removing that excess to this paper towel. And we got most of that cleaned up. And so some of the areas I had to go over again. But they've all got the wash on them now. It does look a little bit dirty, but that's okay. It kind of fills the part. So on this, I'm going to go ahead and show my dry brush in here. I've already got a little bit of some white oil. Again, I let the linseed oil kind of leach off of. Got it onto a real soft brush, and I've gotten the majority off. I always have to use, especially when it's white, an off-colored paper so I can actually see the white coming off of it. Just use a white paper towel, you're not going to have any luck seeing the paint come off of it. So I got just about everything of it off. For doing this, I usually like going a little bit heavier handed to kind of help some of these things pop. just to build the contrast, because you got to remember this is a 1/200 scale, so these aren't very large details. You can have a look at the that hatch compared to my thumbnail. It's pretty small. We're not really looking for the details to be glaring, but it would be kind of nice if they popped out a little bit, which is mainly what I'm looking for. So I'm just kind of lightly and quickly going over everything. And so far from what we've done, kind of see a lot of that stuff really starts jumping out compared to what hasn't been done. So kind of look at that right there. And we will go ahead and go over that. And all it's doing is just picking up the slightest amount of paint right off the bristles of the brush. It's not everyone's style, and that's okay. A lot of people might have a look at that and think it's overdone. But for me, usually after I apply a matte clear coat, a lot of this gets dialed back quite a bit. There we go. And then right around back here. Okay, so that is the bottom piece done. That goes right underneath that platform, and then the other piece goes on top of that. And some of the little details that I also clear coated and put a wash on are also going to get a little bit of a dry brushing treatment. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that off camera. And I'm also going to go ahead and put on a matte clear coat off camera, and we'll revisit when everything's ready to go back together. Well, all of the parts have been had their oil wash, and they've had a little bit of highlighting on the edges. Kind of have a look here and see what we came out with. A little bit of dry brushing. Those little washes kind of really help bring out some of the details. I've also put down a matte clear coat. And as I stated earlier, it kind of helps dial back a little bit of the contrast there with the dry brushing, because some of it, while I was doing so, might have seemed a little bit extreme. But for all intents and purposes, it really helped to draw a lot of the tiny little details, but not in an overbearing way. So, showing off what we've got here. Alright, so what we're going to go ahead and do next here is begin to get things put together. I'm going to put some things aside here when we do so. So for our first step here, we're going to want to attach this right here to this right here. And I can go ahead and try to get everything centered up here. This time we can go ahead and cut this out. Alright, what this does is it fits up right in there. And sometimes you might need a little bit of pressure, just for the simple fact that a lot of paint and clear coat may have made the fit quite a bit tight. But that's how that's going to look. Go ahead and pull this apart a little bit, and at this point we will go ahead and use a little bit of the white label to be a cement. And so I'm not getting any glue or plastic to smushing out of here of the joint, I'm going to use this on the inside of this part right here. And this stuff is great because it's got a decent working time. Alright, I'm going to get that there. In addition to the decent working time, it also kind of helps lubricate the plastic at those joints so it fits together real nice and tight. Let's see here, we've got no visible gaps or anything like that between the two parts. They fit nice. I'm just going to continue to put down a little bit of pressure. There we go. So that looks good to me. So our next step here is going to be putting down some of the little parts here that go in place right there and right here. And then I also want to put down these railings. And there's a ladder that goes right off the back here as well, as you can see right here. And it'll be a lot easier to get these down with that base in place and before we get the main bridge in place. So this will be one of the last few things, and as you can see I also have not yet put in the windows. So it'll be a step here. We'll be putting in the windows here in just a few steps, but our next step here is going to be to get these in place and these in place right here. Oops. Those. So let me get some tweezers real quick. And these little parts, which are labeled A33 in the instructions, go right here. I'm going to go ahead and for this I'm going to use a little bit of extra thin. Let's get this pushed aside. And there is no correct direction for these to be facing in. They're circular all the way around, so they just go right into place right there. The only thing you really want to be sure of is that they are standing straight up and down. And that looks good. So go ahead and get the other one in place. Alright, so those are in place. That's done. So next is these parts that we've got here that are replacing what is labeled as A40 in our instructions. And we just kind of have to have a look at how these are going to be oriented. So once I get that figured out, I'll be right back and we'll get them in place as well. Alright, as best I can tell, that right there is the face of this particular piece of equipment that should be facing to the bow. So I've gone ahead and got a little bit of CA glue here, ready to go. Toothpick. And these parts were constructed in a way so that they would fit into these holes. Just using a medium CA. just getting them seated in there nice. Alright, so just like that. And get the other one in. And it's in place as well now. So, got those two in there. They look very good. They definitely look the part, very well detailed as well. Alright, so next thing here we're going to do is install the railings. So we just got these tiny little corner railings right there, a railing, another railing, and then a ladder. And like I do other railings, I'm going to do this off camera, kind of show you afterwards how I went about getting those in place. So, be right back. Got the railings on, ladders on, attached. We'll probably give this a quick little pass with a little bit of matte clear. Sorry about the focus there, folks. There we go. But again, probably give us a little bit of a pass with some matte clear just to make those thin CA glue marks disappear. But all in all, I'm really thrilled with how the railings went in, fit into place along with the ladder. So I'm going to go ahead and put this aside here and discuss next steps. For this right here, I'm going to take this Molotow chrome, liquid chrome pen or marker or whatever you'd like to call it. And I'm going to go ahead and do this now because it's going to take a little bit of time for this to cure, but I'm going to put this on the inside of and what this will do is give us a representation of the reflective surface of those lights. As I said though, this takes a little bit of time to cure, so I'm going to go ahead and set those aside. And before we put down even the clear UV resin, I'm going to go ahead and make sure we go over the outer edges here just to make sure we dull those back down. We don't need those outer edges being chrome as well. So put that aside and let it dry for a bit. And onto this right here. And as you can see, we've already got window reflection in there. And that is because I have taken some of the clear styrene right there and I have measured and cut this into shape right here. So it fits down within that ledge right there. I haven't glued it, but I will be gluing it here using a little bit of PVA glue just to make sure it doesn't pop out and go anywhere. Because I don't want to use any like to me extra thin or anything like that, because I don't want it running down to where the windows are, fogging things up or anything like that, crazing the windows. And I also don't want to use any CA glue because that will leave smudges for quite a bit of time afterwards. So just a little bit of PVA, which is real nice and safe bet right there. After that cures, we're going to use a little bit of the Tamiya Smoke X19 in order to kind of darken these up a little bit. But I think overall the effect looks nice. It's not super in your face or anything like that, but having those nice shiny windows against the matte finish there of the bridge piece really helps represent the windows that are there. So go ahead and I'm going to get those two items done here and we'll be right back. Alright, so there were a couple things here I did not film getting put in place, and these life rings here, which are labeled as A2 on the instructions, and the position lights here, starboard and port on the other side. But the life rings go on both sides. There's the other, there's the port positioning light right there. But everything got a clear coat matte finish. Everything blends nicely. And put this down and have a look at this piece right here. and you can kind of see here, you definitely see the glare there from the window. And they have been tinted from the backside with the Tamiya smoke. And I also took the time to paint a good chunk of that black. And as far as what this blob is here in the center, that was where I had a bit of a cotton swab super glued in there so I could hold it in these little alligator clip for painting purposes. And super glue sometimes will vent fumes and stuff like that afterwards, long after you think it's cured. So I didn't want it fogging up the windows, so I put down some of the Tamiya XF1 flat black on top of that, and also for the rest of the ceiling as well, just kind of help darken it down a little bit. But I'm really happy with how this turned out. So our next step here is going to be attaching this part to that right there. And in order to do so, make sure I don't drip, I'm going to be using some of the white cap Tamiya cement. And I'm going to apply it on the inside of here. Trying to get most of the excess off of this. And again, I really like this because of its working time. And just kind of go around it. And this will help with keeping plastic and paint from smushing out from where this joins. Alright, so I've got that on there, and with that cement, a fairly good working time. And one thing I've learned a couple times already is to be very careful when handling this part with that ladder hanging out the back. Alright, so that is in place. I'm just going to press it down. There we go. Very satisfying snap into place. And that leaves us with a very minimal gap right there that I'm not even really overly concerned about doing anything about. So for the most part, this stage of assembly is complete. There are a couple things left to tackle on this, and that is this railing here that goes around the top. Let me put this aside here. And this railing, while it comes in the kit as one piece, and it's done so because it includes this little ledge, I could not use the railing as it was presented in the kit because I'm not using this tiny little ledge or little what have you, whatever you want to call it. Because truthfully, it was not there for the majority, 99% of Fletcher's life. So I divided the railing up into 3 pieces. This part and this part from what the kit presented, and then this part right here was from USS Yorktown. I kind of cannibalized the kit parts a little bit since I've got the Ponto set that'll replace that anyway. And this just happened to be the correct length to fit right around this portion of it right there. Now these railings are going to be a little bit less than easy to apply on the top of this, so that's something I'm definitely doing off camera. The other thing here, I got last bits it's going to go on here, these 2 signaling lamps along with that right there. I'm going to go ahead and get those on now that the chrome paint has cured and I've got the railings on, and I'll show you that bit in here in just a minute. But first wanted to go ahead and get some of the UV resin into these signaling lamps. As you can see, there is a very slight difference here between the 2, and that is because the one on the right has got the UV resin in it and the one on the left does not. So I'm going to go ahead and got a little bit here, kind of go over how take care of that. got just a little bit of puddle of the UV resin right here, and just take a toothpick and slowly dip it in there. And I do to put a couple drops in there because I want to build up enough. And then when I'm satisfied that I've got enough in there, just take this light right here and shine it right on those bits. And what that'll do is it will cure this resin. So sometimes about 30 seconds to a minute is sufficient in order to make it nice and hard, so that nothing will really penetrate that, or it's not like paint where you're waiting for the thinners or the carriers to evaporate. This right here, there's actually a reaction going from the UV light rays hitting it. But after it's cured enough, it's good to go, and we can go ahead and put these onto the part we've been working on. So let me go ahead and get that prepared. Be right back. All right, here that piece is right there, and certainly not my best job with railings. As you can see, this one right here was just slightly too large, but in the end I think it'll disappear with the clutter of the rest of the ship, but you can kind of see a little bit of an overlap there in the railing. But it has been clear coated with a matte finish to remove all traces of the CA glue that was used to glue that railing down. So with that done, go ahead and put that down here. I'll zoom in a bit here, and we will get these other pieces in place. So first up, we'll go ahead and get these signal lamps put in. And we're going to be using a little bit of extra thin here. Get my tweezers ready as well. So we just get some down there. Just use the old Mark I finger to give it a little extra oomph to get down there and nestled in place. Wow. The second attempt went quite a bit smoother than that first attempt. And now that those are in place, they look pretty good. And then the last piece for this little bit of superstructure or bridge. And according to the instructions, it looks like the hoop is kind of going from front to back there, so. Get him loaded up into the tweezers. And this is going to be a little precarious because the locating lug on it did not come with the part. A little bit of a lean to port, so we'll go ahead and get that straightened out. Oh, see, there we go, messing around with it and causing it to fall over. Alright, I think that's about as good as it's going to get. It looks like it's straight. It looks like the that loop is lined up from front to back properly, so good alignment. Now, per the instructions, we're not actually going to be affixing this to the rest of the ship just yet. We're going to put it aside. And actually, I'm really fine with that because eventually we're going to have to tie some lines to these two bits right here, and it looks like also in the instructions, well, not the trumpeter instructions, but instructions I found otherwise, we'll be tying more lines off to some of the rails here in order to complete some of the rigging. So I like to get those lines tied into these places here before we actually sit that down on the ship also. So I'm fine with just setting that aside. So I'll go ahead and put that someplace safe. And for our next video, we are going to be working on this little bit, and I will try to make that little bit as short as possible. Everyone's seen the painting, the oil wash, the highlights, so I'm going to try to get some of the construction down and should be able to rope into that some of the instruction involving the Mark 37 radar from the Midwest Model Shop. And this is done so nicely in that it pretty much covers everything up to this point right here, and the print was designed to fit down over top of the base that comes in the trumpeter kit. So we'll go through that, probably get some of the mast and everything completed in our next chapter. And then there's not a whole lot left before we're fitting everything down into the ship. So hopefully you'll join me for the next couple chapters of this. And until that time, stay safe, happy modeling.